Two, one. Hello, and welcome to another episode of our One Piece podcast. Today, with me are Kyle and Luke, as usual. Today, we are talking about Dressrosa. What an arc! A long arc, a very long arc, the longest arc so far. I think it was 101 chapters, or maybe just under.
Yeah.
It was quite a lot of chapters, but I didn't think it overstayed its welcome. I don't think it understayed its welcome, if that makes sense. I think it was a pretty it fit into the chapters as needed. And I overall I really liked the arc. I thought it was. I'm always a big fan of whenever they're in a big city, like Water 7. I always really liked, even like Logue Town, even though it's like a 10 chapter arc. I always liked it. Just whenever they go to a big city, it's pretty cool. So this was like right up my alley, and it definitely delivered on the stuff they've been setting up in the previous arcs, even if I wasn't a big fan of the previous arcs, or like I didn't dislike them. I just wasn't. They weren't as good as the other arcs, and like Punk Hazard, it's the stuff that it delivered on this that Punk Hazard set up. I really liked. What'd you guys think of the arc?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of think that this arc did overstay its welcome a little bit. Um, there's definitely a lot of stuff that happens in this arc, but I just like don't necessarily love all of it. Um, and so I don't know, I don't think that this necessarily in my opinion, deserves to be the longest arc in One Piece, at least up until this point. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I think that some stuff could have been changed or removed to make it less long because you know I kind of am ready, but by the time that I get to the end of this arc, I'm ready to leave Dressrosa. I'm ready to get to another location. Kind of ready to be done with all this stuff, but I don't know.
Same boat. Um, I think length was an issue. There was a lot of detail that honestly didn't need to be included in order for the story to be cohesive and make sense. But I will say, uh, this is like the most complex, chaotic adventure we've had, and that's something to give Oda credit for in its own. He,
Mm-hmm.
he this was certainly nothing like we've had before. Just so many characters, and he really tries to make their own character arcs fulfilling, and I think it does a good job. He does a good job of that. Um, but certainly there's characters you like more than others. Like for me, the royal family in general, Rebecca, the king, they were not my favorite. I didn't care too much about that going on.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a good story arc, but it was just overshadowed by all of the other characters and their arcs going on.
Gotcha. Yeah, um I think the one arc that I did not care for, and this probably I'm gonna guess this is probably pretty common, was the whole dwarf arc. I did not care for the dwarves at all, and I think probably one of the biggest reason was the way it was like the way they spoke was like the way it was written. It sounded like they were talking like baby talk, like oh what the
Yeah,
it was like holy shit, get me the fuck out of it. I hate these dwarves. Um, and like I kind of liked it early when it like served as like getting them all together, but like later on when they like go into like the Queen Dwarves backstory and all that, I was like, I don't really care. Um, that was probably the one thing I really didn't care for in the arc. But other than that, I did like Rebecca as a character. She was overall like this kind of goes into it. This arc seemed like Alabasta on steroids, kind of like a way more
hmm
complex Alabasta. Like you've got them fighting a Chichibukai, you've got like this character like Vivi is Rebecca, that kind of thing. Obviously, it's a lot more complicated, and there's like a lot of different moving parts, and But that's like a very similar vibe that I got from it was a very Alabasta vibe. And they even mention Alabasta later in the arc, when he says like, this is like Dressrosa is what would happen to Alabasta if you didn't stop Crocodile. Like it would have been a pirate town or whatever. Um,
Hmm.
so it was cool that they kind of affirmed that feeling that I had. But yeah, I think the biggest part was probably the dwarf arc that I didn't care for.
Yeah, I kind of agree that it is like a more like complicated Alabasta. And honestly, like I would kind of say that I don't really think that much is like gained from the added complexity. I kind of think that a lot of like the standout parts of this arc, like for one, like the entire like Don Quixote family, like their pirate crew was like one of the highlights for me. Um, and I mean, you have the same kind of thing in Alabaster, right? Like you have the Baroque Works agents. So I think that a lot of like the standout parts of this arc aren't necessarily a result of the added complexity. So that's kind of why I like, if we're going to compare this to Alabasta, I still like Alabasta more because it might be more simple, but I think that like there's less um there's less like that gets like muddied down and like diluted and stuff.
Yeah, I
I
could
would
see that.
agree with that, but I still think for me Dressrosa is better than Alabasta. And I'd put it above Alabasta.
I think
Um,
the one thing that I have to put Alabasta over it is like I didn't really have like a great emotional moment in this arc. I think the only emotional moment that I had was like honestly like at the very end with like Luffy and Sabo's reconnection. Like that was like a little bit of an emotional moment, and then I think yeah, no, honestly I think that was it. And that like is like that's not even part. That's like after the arc ends basically. You don't see that until the very end. So I don't even know if I'd count that as part of the arc. But other than that, I think I put everything that I liked about Dressrosa over Alabasta. I really like the fights in this. Like, so I guess we'll get into that, but I really
I'm
liked a lot of the
confused. Are
fights.
are you saying overall you like Dressrosa more than Alabasta?
Yeah, I would say I like
Okay,
Dressrosa more than
okay.
Alabasta, but it
It
lacks the
was
emotion.
missing the emotional.
Yeah, it lacked the emotional core that Alabasta had.
Okay, fair
Um,
enough.
yeah,
I think on the emotional aspects, we had some fantastic flashbacks, and that's what did it for me. You had Law's flashback, which I
yeah,
loved.
hmm
Even Don Quixote's flashback, it added a lot. And then of course you got the Senior Pink,
yes. Oh my God, I think
which honestly
Senior
it
Pink.
didn't need to be there.
No,
It did
it didn't
not
need to
need
be
to
there,
be.
but okay, the entire time I was like, Frankie versus Senior Pink is honestly like one of my favorite comedic fights that has happened so far. And then the flashback came and it just made that fight so much better. Like that
Yes,
fight
Oda
was
was just flexing his muscles with that one. We did not need a flashback for Senior Pink, but
yeah.
it happened,
There were
and
like a few
I'm
like
here
really
for it.
small flashbacks like that. Like there were a few flashbacks that were like really small like I think Baby 5 had a flashback too. Um There were like I think a few members of the Don Quixote family had flashbacks like that, but Senor Pink's was definitely the standout just because I don't know. That whole fight with Frankie was awesome. Like it was so fucking funny every single time. They like both like the crowd will say something, then they'll like brush it off and like, "Oh my God, what a man those two are."
So hard boiled.
Oh yeah. And they're just so it was I was laughing my ass off at that fight. And it was a good fight too. Like it was they were beating each other and then you got like the climax of the fight was like, "All right, I'm going to hit you with this one move and if you survive that move, then you win the fight." And he obviously Frankie survives, but it was a great fight. Um, Definitely my favorite
Yeah,
member of the Don Quixote family.
yeah, I think that fight was definitely a highlight for me too. Just
Yeah.
like I love the fact that it's like so like brutal and it's just like hand to hand, like they're literally just like just tanking each other's hits, like neither of them are dodging,
Yeah.
and they're like they just like they have this like implicit understanding to like fight each other on that level,
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
so good. And then the flashback adds so much.
Yeah.
It's
I think
because
yeah.
this entire time you're like, Senor Pink has like one of the most absurd designs, like pretty
Yes,
much
and then
that
they make a
Otis had
reason
in
for
One
it.
Piece. And then
He's
the
up
fact that there's
there.
actually a reason, and the fact that it's actually like tugs at your heartstrings so much is it's that's just classic One Piece right there.
Yes. And there was even like I think fan art in one of the SBSs of Frankie and Senor Pink getting a drink, which is awesome to see. Um,
Yeah.
while we're on the subject of flashbacks, I guess we'll go over some of the other ones that were really good. I really liked Rocinante's flashback with Law that Luke mentioned earlier. We were kind of mentioning in the last arc that Law kind of missed that emotional, like he kind of seemed like almost like a robot, like he was kind of playing the straight man, but like without like the funny aspect of the straight man. And this really gave him a bit more of an emotional, like it wasn't like super emotional, but you got a much more understanding of where Law's coming from, and like the fact that he's transformed from this kid saying I want to kill everything and burn everything down or whatever to like where he is now, like you can kind of understand why he is that straight man, and that whole thing with Rocinante, which is a really cool name. I think he mentions it in one of the SBSs, but um, Rocinante was the name of Don Quixote's horse in the original story, which is a cool like throwaway joke, I guess. But
Hmm.
that whole Law Rocinante dynamic was great, and getting to see where Law came from and why he was chosen to have this, or kind of chosen to have this fruit, and also the fact that we learned that Doflamingo like straight up says like some people consider this fruit to be the strongest fruit out there, which is really cool.
Learn about Law's fruit a bit more. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
guess
I don't
well, while
know.
we're talking about it, he has some OP stuff going on here where he can give someone immortality.
Yes. He can give somebody immortality as long as he dies.
Yes.
So yeah, basically Law now is has like the like literally canon most powerful devil fruit basically.
Yes.
Like everyone is just like, yes, this guy has the most powerful devil fruit. And like he he also has like this like super, we get this like really tragic backstory where he's like literally the only survivor from this kingdom. And like, he says that he wants to like kill everyone because of that, but then, Rocinante kind of gives him a heart, and like he feels a connection with him, and he's like, okay, maybe I don't want to kill everyone.
Hmm.
Maybe I want to actually just like take revenge for this guy. And then we also find out that Law is literally a D, which is
Yes.
a
Wait,
pretty big
I think we knew that
bombshell.
before. I'm pretty sure he had mentioned that at some point before this, that he was a D.
Oh, really? I forgot. I thought that this
I
was when we learned it
I
was
think it
in the
was
flashback.
during the Shabandi archipelago. I think they do mention it at least once, because I remember not being surprised at that, because I think that there was a mention of it before, but it was kind of a throwaway thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
Well, he's also a D. So
yes,
basically, like I think my biggest problem with Law, especially in this arc, is that it just seems like the story is like giving Law like so many reasons to be cool. Like they just like pile on all of these things. Like he's a D. He has the most powerful devil fruit. He has the most tragic backstory. Also, his flashback is literally like um it's the second longest flashback in the entire series up until now. Only second to like the really long like Luffy flashback that we get after the war.
hmm,
So I just like, I don't know. Does Law really deserve to be this special? Like I just feel like the story is kind of like really trying to make us think that Law is cool. And I don't know. I don't know if I buy it.
I do think that a lot of laws, like we really only got a lot about law like really recently, like within the
Yeah.
last 200 chapters, which does seem kind of fast, but overall I think I'm okay with it. I think I don't know. I don't know what his whole point in the story is going to be going forward, because his whole purpose with the flamingos kind of gone now. But
Hmm.
I'm curious to see where he goes, because I do see where you're coming from, where like he has so many like most one of the most powerful devil fruits, if not the most powerful. He's a D. He's one of the terrible generation. Like it's a lot of things going for him. So um,
He's a major plot point to the story now.
Yeah,
Like, that's a big thing to have in the story is someone can get immortality,
yeah,
and he's the one
yeah.
to do it.
He seems
And
like
and and also, he's allied with the Straw Hats. Like, would you be mad if one of the Straw Hats got that long of a flashback? I don't know. I'm a fan of the flashback.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think it's more that like what I like about One Piece in particular is like how it's able to really balance a lot of its characters between like being like cool, badass, and then also like really goofy. And I just think that Law is like way more on like the side of like he's constantly presented as like a cool, capable, always in control kind of like a badass character. And we don't often get like the counterpoint to that where he's like the butt of jokes. And like because that doesn't happen often, I would say that those are like my favorite Law moments, like when he is made fun of by the Straw Hats. And as we kind of talked about, like last week or the week before, when we were talking about Punk Hazard, there are like a couple moments where he's kind of like forced to like, you know, he's forced to like play to the Straw Hats tune just because he's like around them and they're like way goofier and more lighthearted than he is. And like they kind of make him the butt of jokes. And like those are like the best Law moments. But I just say that I just think that they don't really happen that often. And he's like, just because he's like too far on like the edgy side, I'm kind of already predisposed to not like him. And then the fact that like the story kind of really, really wants you to like him with like all of these things that they're giving him, it just makes me like him even less.
gotcha. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Um, yeah, I think yeah, like I said, I'm just curious to see where they take him because he is like Luke said, he's like a major part of the story. Like that's such a big thing to have immortality like introduced.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm very curious to see where they go with him. Kind of going off of that, we were talking about the rest of the Straw Hats, and this arc has like a very interesting dynamic where basically half the Straw Hats aren't there for most of it, or I guess not
Hmm.
most of it, but
Like almost,
half
I
of
would say
it.
that like
I don't know when they leave.
I think honestly, I think it might be before the halfway point where the crew gets split.
Probably actually, yeah. But anyway, they're
Yeah,
not there. I think it's Sanji, Nami, Chopper, and Brooke are not there, right?
yeah, yeah. I think
They all
that's the
take off for Zot. What's the place?
Zoe.
Zoe.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, they get chased by Big Mom. Big Mom shows up, chases them, and then just doesn't show up for the rest of the arc. So that was kind of interesting for my. I thought she was gonna be a decent player in the arc. Like she was gonna say like, oh well they ran away, but I'm gonna go to Dressrosa now. And but then she just didn't do anything for the rest. I don't know if she was chasing them the whole time or what that whole deal was, but so yeah, they're not in the arc, which kind of reminded me of the war arc where
Hmm.
it's just Luffy, except this is half the Straw Hats.
Yeah.
And overall, I think I was okay with it. Like they wanted to put a spotlight on some other smaller characters that are introduced, which makes sense for how the arc ended. But also, I think that of the remaining Straw Hats, a lot of them, or let's see, my biggest gripe was probably Usopp didn't really do much past a certain point. Like he has his whole infiltration thing, and like he's not shown to be as capable as I'd like, except for the one moment where he shoots the the fake Usopp face at the girl through the window. He has his
Yeah.
sniper moment, and like that's the most
He
capable he's
basically has
shown.
like, yeah,
But like
yeah.
I don't know, up until this point, past the time skip, they kept like hyping up like Usopp's capable now. Like he's had all his training with the plants and stuff, and I don't know. I like my goofy Usopp, but also like I want a bit more badass Usopp, like Soga King style, you know?
That's fair. But I do think that like honestly, like the Usopp Sugar moment is like, in my opinion, one of the greatest moments in the manga up until now.
Yeah, it was
Um,
pretty good.
like it's just like so good because honestly, like this is kind of like how I kind of this is like what I like about Usopp after the time skip is that like he has like he still is the same person, like he isn't just not a coward anymore, like he still is He still is cowardly. He still perceives himself as being like probably rightly so, just being like completely outclassed by a lot of the people that he's going against, just because he's literally like Luffy's crewmate, and so like Luffy is going up against at this point some of like the biggest players on the world. So like obviously he is like outclassed. But I just like that despite that, despite the fact that he is like, a coward at heart and he like wants to run away, he does find the strength in himself to like have those like hyper capable moments where he does just like stand up and like do what he does best. And like the fact that it's still like it's hyper capable Usopp, but it's also still goofy Usopp at the same time because like the entire plan to incapacitate Sugar with like the Usopp face, which is like a callback to earlier,
Hmm.
is just so good. Like the
Yeah,
combination of, like I was saying, the combination of like being like a cool badass and also like goofy as hell. And I
yeah.
think that like that moment is like such a good, it walks that line perfectly.
Yeah. And I think my biggest gripe would be like past that point, we don't see Usopp do anything. Like Zoro has this big fight with the stone guy, and then you see him like actively like pushing against the cage. Like he has his moments like leading people. Like he leads Kinemon and the new samurai guy, and like then you've got Robin, and she's like helping protect Rebecca, and then she also has like her effort with that. And then it just seems like Usopp kind of got sidelined for the rest of the arc, and he didn't do much. But that was
Oh,
kind of my biggest
I
gripe.
would say Usopp did more than Robin.
Yeah,
Um,
overall, I think he did.
Overall, I'd say yeah, but
Yeah.
like
I
Robin
he
felt
he
more
did he beat
interweaved.
Sugar, which ended up, freeing all of the toys.
No, I'm just
Like
I'm
that
just
was that was a big turning point for the Straw Hats.
Uh-huh.
Whereas Robin, she didn't even get a fight. Like she fought with uh uh
Kairos.
yeah,
Kairos,
with
like
Kairos against
she basically
Diamante.
just protected Rebecca while he was fighting. Like
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
but
think that
I
I
think
would say that she didn't even have a fight at all.
she did nothing the entire arc.
well, I
Yeah,
don't know if
which is
I'd
like
call
a
Usopp's
huge
thing a fight
disappointment.
either though.
But I don't know. It's like an Usopp fight,
Yeah,
Like, sure, I guess it's not. You do have like some Usopp fights that are like more like drawn out, I guess. But all of like Usopp's fights are like one usually in like a single moment of like insane cleverness or like where he kind of just like realizes the way to like turn the tides.
hmm,
So I think it's like fitting with that. It's it kind of makes sense because he's a sniper that he's not like literally facing off against the person that he's fighting.
yeah,
Um, but then also I just like even if we don't classify it as a fight, that like moment was like the best moment of the entire arc. And so like I would say that like Robin, like even if they both don't have fights, Robin doesn't have a moment nearly as good as that.
yeah,
Just because it kind of seems to me like at this point, like Oda just doesn't really know what to do with Robin because her power is like really powerful and like too strong for the character that I guess that Oda wants her to be. It's
yeah.
kind of unfortunate,
I don't know.
but
I don't think I think my biggest thing would be like Usopp had better moments, but he wasn't as like spread out. Like he didn't feel as intertwined with the entire arc as Robin did. Even though Robin didn't have those great moments, it just felt like I saw Robin like with the cast and crew more often. Whereas like it would often be like, oh yeah, Usopp's over there with the king, or God Usopp's over there with the king, or whatever. So it was just it just felt like she felt more interactive with the whole arc as opposed to Usopp, who had like kind of blew his load early, and then you didn't see him for a bit. Um, anyway, but yeah, Zoro had a I really like Zoro's fight. I thought it was pretty creative. His enemy was pretty. I don't know. His enemy seemed very strong, but also like it was kind of like a figuring out kind of fight, which is like always the best. Um, he had to.
I liked about Pika was that this is going back to having interesting devil fruits, because I don't necessarily think Pika is strong,
Yeah,
but the devil fruit is so unique that it made him that way.
yeah, that devil fruit was super cool. Like at the very end when he's like on his way to like crush the king and like you just see like this ginormous hulking like stone figure just lumbering towards the king. It was super cool and like then you're just like, okay, well, now you know Zoro's about to have his cool ass moment where he's gonna be fucking chopping that bitch up. and he uses I can't remember what the move was called, but he had some really cool like I don't know, he was like reciting poetry before he did it, which was super hype.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I thought that that was like it was a decent fight. Like what I like more about like the Zoro fights in general is like how they're kind of more like back and forth, like how they like Zoro often like takes a lot of damage, and they like feel more like brutal. Whereas like this one, I feel like Zoro wasn't really taking a lot of hits from this guy. He was just like the guy was kind of Pico was always trying to like not be where Zoro was and just
yeah.
kind of running, you know. And then once Zoro figured out how to corner him, then he got him, which was like cool. Like it's not like a wouldn't say it's a bad fight, but I wouldn't say that it's like up there with like Zoro and Mr. One, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, it never felt like Zoro was on the ropes, but I do like him. He doesn't really get those problem-solving fights very often. It's usually like him just being like, okay, like with Mr. One, okay, I can like I need to cut steel to win this fight, or like something straight up like that. Whereas this one was just like a bit more of the puzzle brain Zoro, which is something we don't get to see a whole lot of.
It's fitting. It's fitting.
Yeah.
Zoro is that character where we know he is insanely strong, and we know he's gonna chop up Pika. Like, and they did it in an interesting enough way that I enjoyed it.
hmm I think that covers all the Straw Hats fights. I guess we could talk about Robin's fight was not really like we said earlier. She was in a supportive role. She didn't really do much besides protect Rebecca. Um,
He fought Steven Tyler.
yeah, she fought Steven
Yeah.
Tyler. Diamante was Diamante. I feel like I didn't get a big enough impression of him when he was in the tournament that I cared about him enough when he was fighting Kairos. Um,
That's fair, but I also really like his devil fruit. I think that his
his
power
Devil
is
Fruit
like
is really
super
cool. Like
interesting.
when he throws the confetti up and then it comes down as spike balls, I was like, that's really creative.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's definitely like one of those like devil fruits that has a lot of creative applications. And I was overall pretty satisfied with what we got out of Diamante.
yeah. Um, I was really satisfied with what we got out of Kairos. I know Luke mentioned he didn't really like the royal family, but I thought Kairos was really well done. His whole like moment when he comes back and everyone remembers him. Everyone was like, how am I so stupid? How could I not remember Kairos?" And like they've got the statue of him and everything, and like he still has the one leg. And I thought his whole fight and the climax of his fight where he's getting his like the absolute shit beat out of him by Diamante, and Diamante is literally just like, what are you like? Are you made of steel? Like how are you surviving all of this? And he's just charges him and chops his sword in half and defeats him. I don't know. Kairos is a
This
cool
was the
character.
highlight of the royal family story arc.
Yeah, I think Kairos and
Yeah.
Rebecca I like a lot more than I thought. Well, the king was kind of just there as like a backstory, and then
Yeah.
what's her name? The lady who has a really
Oh,
strong
Viola.
Viola,
yeah,
yeah.
Viola
Viola
is
slash Violet. Yeah.
yeah. A, she has like a very strong devil fruit, but B, she just seemed like she was there to like tell the people that weren't with
Hmm.
her or that were with her what was going
Yeah.
around the battlefield.
I 100% agree. Yeah. She's
Um,
like a tool.
yeah, so she was kind of whatever, but I liked Rebecca and Kairos and that whole dynamic with the toy soldier. Um,
I
Yeah.
was
I thought
spoiled.
I thought Rebecca and Kairos were pretty good, but not. I didn't care about them a lot, but I thought they were pretty good.
yeah, I think that could have been like a very good emotional core for the entire thing, and I think it was supposed to be a pretty good emotional core, but I never really like felt I did think, oh, this is a good reunion, but I never like got close to like tears or anything. You got
Yeah.
spoiled, Luke,
Thing-
you said?
I think that was spoiled for me because of the anime.
Uh,
They just overplayed Rebecca and the soldier, and like I'm not even joking you. They would go to her flashback every episode.
Yeah,
And
that's
while I'm
agreed.
talking about this is where I decided to stop watching the anime, by the way.
Hmm.
Dressrosa?
Dressrosa. It
Okay.
was unbearable.
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine because I think that this arc is drawn out in the manga, so I can't even imagine in the anime.
Oh man,
There
yeah.
were more episodes than there were manga chapters.
I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
yeah.
awful.
So
There
if
were, I think it was like 120 episodes.
Jesus, that's crazy. If you're going by the rule of like two manga chapters per episode, and you've got more than the amount of chapters in a 100 chapter uh,
And that's the
arc.
problem. They just replayed the same stuff, and Rebecca and the royal family, Kairos, they were one of those things that they just replayed. And I think that's a major reason it was spoiled for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, that definitely does seem unbearable. If I ever do go, or I think I will eventually go and watch the anime, but I can definitely see me having my hand on the skip forward 5 seconds key and just kind of getting through those flashbacks every episode.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I feel like you need it with the last half of the One Piece anime for sure.
yeah. I kind of want to talk about the just like the beginning of the arc with the. I really like the arena. That I don't know, something about the arena aspect. I just kind of like dug. Maybe it was because we hadn't really seen any like arena type of thing before, but um, I don't know. I just liked that whole vibe. It was cool seeing all the characters from everywhere, and then they kind of have their spotlight in the arena, and then they come back later on. Like they all get turned into toys after they lose, and then they come back, and then you kind of get them developing throughout the fights, which was cool to see. I think the biggest ones were like the guy with the pointy head and his two sons. You've got the giant guy that was super cool, and he makes like mentions to like the giant pirate crew that was from Elbaf, and then you've got I think they even mentioned like Dory and Brogy.
Hmm.
You've got obviously oh fuck, I'm gonna forget his name, the cannibal guy that's like a super simp for the
Bart
entire Luffy crew.
Bartolomeo.
Yeah,
Mayo.
Bartolomeo, who is definitely a highlight. I really like
Yeah.
Bartolomeo because that was something I was not expecting. Because when he shows up, they call him the cannibal. He's got sharp teeth, and I'm like, oh, he's gonna be the like one of the minor villains for this arc. He's gonna like join Doflamingo, and then it turns out he's like the biggest simp for the Straw Hat Pirate crew ever, which is I love that. It was hilarious, and I thought
Yeah.
they did a good job with that. And then you've got who's the White Knight guy?
Cavendish.
Yeah,
Cavendish.
Cavendish. I liked his character. He had kind of like a Zenitsu type of thing going on from Demon Slayer, where he falls asleep and then turns into like an alter ego that just fucks shit up. Um, and yeah, you just had like a bunch of these arena characters that kind of like developed throughout the arc. They were minor characters, but I enjoyed most of
Uh,
them.
the King Punch guy was cool.
Yeah, I liked him. He was cool. He was like,
The Daddy Long Legs guy.
yeah, I like the King Punch guy because like he would like disappear for 30 chapters and then like my punch is back and charged. um, yeah, the Daddy Longlegs guy. There were just so many like, and we get to see like some cool devil fruits. I don't even know if some of them were devil fruits. They were just cool uses of hockey at least. Um, especially like the Conehead guy, who could split an island apparently, but. Yeah, they weren't like none of the, I don't think any of the fights were like particularly challenging for Luffy in the arena. Like they kind of made a point to show how easy it was for him. The Conehead guy was like the closest, but it didn't even look like Luffy was like expending too much energy for that. And it was just kind of cool to see how they all squared up against each other. And then yeah,
Also
like
notable to point out that he didn't go to the later rounds. So
yeah, true.
the harder fighters would have been in those later rounds.
Yeah, but the harder fighters would have been Diamante and who's that other guy that shows up at the very end of the arc
Oh, the
again?
guy from the Blackbeard Pirates,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't,
Jesus
and
Burgess.
I don't
Yeah.
think those guys.
Burgess.
I don't know if Diamante might have been a pretty good challenge, but Burgess I don't think would have been too bad because Sabo kind of just instantly wipes the floor with him. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, and then it would have been
I don't know.
Rebecca.
I feel like Burgess is probably more powerful than Diamante, just because like if we think about like who was able to beat Diamante, it was like Kairos, who's kind of he's kind of a nobody in terms of like the grand scale of like One Piece. You know, like he's
Yeah,
important for this arc, but then Sabo is like he's they're clearly building up Sabo to be like I mean he's literally Dragon's number two.
yeah,
So I think that in terms of like power levels, Burgess is probably stronger than Diamante,
yeah.
but
I
I don't
guess,
know.
yeah, I guess, because we don't. The arc makes a point of having Diamante's fight be a challenge, but Burgess. So that kind of warped my perspective on their powers. But yeah, I can definitely see Burgess being stronger. Um,
Yeah.
I
also, I
was
guess,
pleasantly I was pleasantly surprised with the Colosseum
yeah,
because when they first introduced that, I was like, oh boy, like it's gonna be like Hunter x Hunter, but worse. And uh, they did it justice. They had really cool characters, and
I like the
they
whole.
they didn't spend too long there either.
Uh, I really liked him like hiding as Lucy. I don't know that whole. It was kind of a silly thing, but everyone's slowly figuring out that it's Straw Hat Luffy, and like Bartolomeo like slowly finds like when he finds out he freaks out, and like um Cavendish has his own like he hates the worst generation because like they're taking the spotlight away from him, so he's got a vendetta against Luffy, and then um the Conehead guy's got a vendetta against Luffy because Garp blunted his head, and like all of them have their own like thing with Luffy, but like they're slowly finding out that it's not Lucy, it's Luffy, and I don't know, that whole thing was kind of silly, but and also it's like the stupidest disguise ever. He's just got like a fake beard on and like a hat, but I don't know, I love the design of Lucy. It was really stupid but really funny, and then literally like Rebecca calls him Lucy throughout the rest of the arc, even though he's like dropped the persona entirely. It was just
Yeah.
really stupid but really funny, and just kind of made, like you said, they didn't spend too much time there, but I enjoyed the time that was spent there.
Yeah, I also like that everyone is cheering for Lucy in like the final fight against
Yeah,
Doflamingo.
yeah.
Like,
And they've got like their arena announcer that comes back, and he's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
cheer for
Yep.
Lucy. Yeah.
And
yeah,
actually, and I was also hesitant on all these characters being introduced. 'Cause I was like, I'm not really going to care about them, but they did a good job of, you know, building these characters while they're all running away from the bird cage and helping each other out.
Yeah.
And and then it pays off even more at the end when we find out they join.
Yeah, that was like a really good payoff that I was 100% not expecting. Because like they had been building up all these characters, and I was like, I'm really curious what they're going to be doing with these characters. Are we going to see them show up later on? And then they basically like try to make Luffy like a Yonko kind of like they like declare themselves like subservient loyal crews, like basically the same like hierarchy that these four kings have had, or four emperors have had. Like they have like the subservient pirate crews, and he's got like a crew of now like 5600 people that will follow him. And like while he doesn't want that specific title, or I don't think they don't make specific mention of the title, but he doesn't want that like official strings attached to him. He's like, it cramps my style, but it's basically still there, right? Like he's got these crews that are
It
loyal
is.
to him.
hmm
It's his grand fleet.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Which is super cool. I was not expecting that, and that was a really hype moment when they were just like, "We want to drink like the what are the brother bonding
brother
drink."
son.
The sake, yeah.
Yeah.
Or the father son.
And we're probably gonna see these characters again at some point in the story.
Yeah.
So
And yeah,
yeah, it paid off.
they all have Vivre papers of Luffy, so they know if Luffy's in trouble. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing these guys in the future because all of them, like they may not have been developed the most, but like they were developed enough that I care about them, and I want them to I want to see them show up later.
yeah.
And then I guess Sabo's probably the biggest character we haven't talked about because I made mention to it when we saw Sabo's backstory. I said he's coming back,
Yeah,
and he did. Um,
which he did.
which he did. And as soon as like that whole like they were talking about the fire fruit, and like they have like the encounter that kind of happens off camera quote unquote off camera, where Luffy's like, "I will never give up the fire fruit," and then like the next scene happens, like he's like, "You there with the fire fruit," or like, "You there, Lucy," or whatever, and he's like, and Bartolomeo's like, who the hell would talk to Luffy like that?" And then it kind of like skips forward a bit, and like Luffy's like, "Yeah, I'm okay with giving up the fire fruit." And like, okay, it's got to be Sabo, right? Like that's the only person he would ever give up the fire fruit for would be somebody that physically knew Ace, and like,
Or someone on his crew.
or someone on his crew, but they wouldn't hide the identity of someone on his crew.
Yeah. No, they definitely wouldn't. Yeah. So
And they've
I,
kind
I
of they
agree.
like
But he did say like he was talking to Frankie. He's like, Frankie, you want the fruit?
Frankie
Like
with
he
the
would have given it to
fire
Frankie.
fruit would be pretty hype, but also it wouldn't be the
Yeah.
same Frankie.
Yeah. Also, I don't even know how that would work. Like if his cyborg body would also like be Logia-ified, or if he would just have like floating cyborg. Like if the only part of him that's like a human is like his back, would
Oh
just really
yeah,
be like his back is on fire. Like I don't even really know.
yeah. I feel like the only fruit that I would want to see, like that we've seen so far, that would fit Frankie would be Wapple's fruit.
Yeah, that would be a natural fit for Frankie for sure. Yeah.
Um,
Say
yeah,
Baby Five.
Baby Five's fruit would be
Yeah,
good
Baby
too,
Five. Yeah. Yeah.
but he kind of
Or
does
even if
Baby
he just
Five's
had
shtick, but better already.
yeah, kind of. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think Baby Fives is probably like technically better,
Yeah, I
but
agree. But can Baby
yeah.
Five create a giant mech? Is my question. Does that count
Yeah,
as a
probably not.
weapon?
Probably not.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, good to see Sabo come back, and he seems pretty strong. Like you said, he's the right hand man of Dragon, right? Or maybe Ivankov is, and he's one after Ivankov, but he seems very strong.
I think he is in like in front of Cov in the chain of
Okay,
command.
okay. Yeah. Um, and I did really like getting to see. I thought we were gonna get to see it earlier in the arc, but it kind of comes like last 10 chapters, I think. Getting to see Sabo and Luffy reunite, and I really liked. They like said like Sabo has like or not nostalgia. He's got memory loss, and like he just like has like a sudden awakening, like holy shit, Ace is my brother. As soon as he finds out Ace dies, and he's like bawling his eyes out, and then you get to see Luffy bawling his eyes out. And that was probably the biggest emotional moment in the arc for me, at least. That was pretty nice. Whenever you see Luffy crying over something like that, it's always like Luffy doesn't cry too easily.
Yeah.
And like Luffy even like says like I had to see Ace die, and I was like, oh man, jeez, Luffy.
Yeah. I
I
don't know.
like
I mean,
Sabo overall, but I have some issues with him
I think
yeah, me
because
Kyle
too.
also has issues with them.
I was
yeah,
about to give mine.
yeah.
um I don't know. It just sort of feels like Sabo being um okay, well first off like I think like I didn't really have a problem in the flashback, but it was definitely clear that like Sabo was not intended from the beginning of the story. Like
Yes.
they
Yep.
I think we kind of talked about it a little bit, but we didn't really I didn't really consider it a huge deal. But I think now that Sabo has a larger role in the story, I think it's fair for me to say now I think it's a little bit bigger of a deal. That like such an important character is like, has like such a important past with Luffy, and it was completely kind of like, you know, not it was not mentioned or foreshadowed in the same way that a lot of other things in One Piece are. Um, and then also, I think that like Sabo like being back and like being alive now, um, I mean, I think it makes sense that like it probably was intended from the point when Sabo was introduced as a character. It was probably intended since he died. But I do kind of feel like, especially with him getting the fire, like the same devil fruit as Ace, it just feels like the story is trying to like is trying to like have Ace be dead and like get points for like the emotional moment of Ace being dead, but also it's like Ace is kind of still alive because it's like Luffy's brother with the fire of devil fruit
Yeah.
is still
Yep.
alive, so it just sort of feels like now it kind of like retroactively makes Ace's death like it's still that character that is dead, but just like the amount of similarities between him and like a character who's introduced right after he dies, it just feels like this is just blatantly supposed to be Ace's replacement as opposed to someone like carrying on the legacy of Ace. just because there are just so many similarities.
That's
And then
that's
also,
exactly it.
yeah, and then also I think that like the fact that he had like amnesia, I feel like in general is just like such a get out of jail free card for like any sort of like story. I feel like authors use it all the time as just like a get out of jail free card, and it's like, if Sabo was alive this whole time and he didn't have amnesia, it would be like, well, why the hell didn't Sabo show up at Marineford? Like, does Luffy just care about Ace more than Sabo did? And it's like, oh well, he conveniently had amnesia, and then literally right when Ace died, that's what triggered his memories to come back. So then like that's why now he can basically function as like a replacement Ace in the story. Um, so
I
I don't
I
know.
was
That's kind of my problem.
overall I was okay with him having amnesia because like his like the way he comes to Dragon's crew, like he literally like almost dies and like gets shot in the head basically. Like that's like a relatively believable thing. I don't think I think amnesia is mostly a myth in real life. Like memory loss like that doesn't happen, but like this is obviously fake, so like that's like a relatively believable thing. The one thing I had a problem with like I like the moment where he's like, "Oh, I remember Ace," and like he's like fucking crying, like, "Holy shit, Ace is my brother and he's dead." But also like for him to be Dragon's number two and to have never have heard of Ace before that moment, like that just doesn't make sense. Like Ace was like
Yeah.
a huge
Yeah.
character uh in Whitebeard's troop, and like the news of Ace getting captured and taken to Marineford even was like huge. So, and like even before that, like just him hunting down Blackbeard, like him having never heard of Ace before that or like never heard him mentioned, like I guess the
Plausible.
yeah, it's just implausible, and that's probably my biggest issue with the whole Sabo.
It's very clear Oda's covering up his tracks.
Yeah, and this is probably the biggest example of that happening because overall
Right.
Oda's pretty good with
Yeah.
that and with not doing that.
He's been it's at this point I think it's been 2 decades of this anime going on.
Yeah,
This is the first major plot hole he had to fill in,
yeah,
because you're totally right. Ace is a part of Whitebeard's crew, who is like the strongest pirate crew at the time, and Sabo is with Dragon, the Revolutionary Army. Like there's no chance they don't. He's never heard.
yeah, yep,
Yeah, I agree. But I also think that I wouldn't say this is like this is probably the, well, I don't know. Is it like I would say it's probably not the first example of
No.
like such a retcon. I would say like like the big or the first one that's like on this scale though, because I do think that this is like one of the bigger ones in the series, would just be like hockey, because like there's like a couple things like that. I sure you could make the argument that like, oh well, no one in like Paradise really like has hockey because everyone who's powerful enough and has it like is already in the new world. But like there are like certain moments that like definitely like you couldn't wave that away from, like the part in like speaking of Ace, like when Ace is fighting Blackbeard and like Blackbeard makes such a big deal out of like how his devil fruit counters Logia's. He's like, oh Ace, like I bet you haven't even been like hit in like years. But it's like he's literally like a Yonko commander basically. Like he would be fighting people with hockey all the time, and there should be people with like hockey like in the Yonko crew. So like he would have gotten hit. But like so it's like clearly like that was like evidence that like hockey was not intended from the start. And like I don't know, I'd say that like hockey is like I would say the only other one on the level of Sabo, um, as like in terms of like a huge retcon.
yep. I can see that.
Also back to beefing with Robin. Robin was with the Revolutionary Army for 2 years,
Yeah,
and she didn't bother telling Luffy that his brother was alive.
Well, she didn't know that Sabo was his brother.
yeah, she probably didn't know that they
No,
were brothers.
they make a point like at the very end, like nobody knew that Sabo and Luffy were brothers because, well, A, Sabo didn't know for the longest time, but also B, Luffy presumed that Sabo was dead. He never mentioned Sabo to anybody else because like
Suppose.
he just he just figured Sabo was dead, so he'd never
Yeah,
told anybody about Sabo. I think they make a specific point of mentioning that, and they also make a specific point of Robin, Sabo, and
koala,
what's her name?
koala.
Koala like reuniting. Yeah.
Yeah. I like, yeah, I agree that like it's technically not a plot hole, but it does sort of feel like pretty convenient that like Luffy never brought him up. I guess it kind of is like at least in character for Luffy to just like not talk about shit that doesn't matter
Yeah,
like at that moment. So I don't have like a huge problem with it, but in combination with all of the other things that like oh Sabo like just you know didn't didn't exist before. I feel like it does it's just like if that was the only thing then I wouldn't have a problem with it, but because it's like in conjunction with all of these other things it's like okay, like yet another example of like how Oda just didn't have this in.
yep,
All that being said, Sabo with the Marrow no Mi, very cool.
yeah. I really liked his moment where he bodies I forget his name again, but the Blackbeard pirate guy. The Blackbeard pirate guy kind of taunts him, expecting to get a free hit, and then he just fucking bonks him. That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
bonks him with fire.
Bonks him with fire.
He had a fantastic fight with Fujitora.
Yes. Fujitora, I actually think Fujitora is a cool character as well. He's like
Very cool.
a marine character that's like I think they even mentioned like he's like a more virtuous smoker almost. Because like Smoker says like I want to do the things that Fujitora does, like with Fujitora like showing like prostrating himself and saying like this is not okay, like Marines need to be better than this or whatever, and him having those principles and like Smoker may have those principles, but Smoker would never like Smoker even says like I would never do the things that Fujitora does, even if I was in his position, because like I don't have like I may share the principles and the virtues that this man does, but like I don't have the I don't know. It's not like the backbone, but like he would never stand up to his superiors like that. So seeing Fujitora do that and like his power is sick. Like he's got like meteor powers and shit. Like he can gravity powers, I guess, something like that.
Yeah, gravity.
But he seems like he's gonna be the new Smoker for the new world, kind of.
Yeah, except on an even higher level just
Yeah,
because he's
he's an admiral, which
yeah,
makes sense.
kind of sad for Smoker because basically Smoker is like kind of irrelevant at this point, but
Yeah.
no. I'm yeah. Smoker didn't exactly have a great showing in Punk Hazard, so
No, he did
I'm glad that we
not.
have a
Well, he was in.
replacement.
He was not in his body for most of it.
That's true, yeah. But even when he had to get like Law to help him and stuff.
Yep.
I guess I didn't realize that until just now. Like, yeah, the Straw Hats have surpassed Smoker.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think if Luffy and
That's
Smoker
unfortunate.
1v1, I think Luffy would wipe the floor with Smoker now.
yeah. I mean, now that he has hockey, it's like it's literally kind of just like a no-brainer.
Yeah. I feel like
They
Smoker could
could
be like if Smoker was a villain, like the amount of creativeness you could probably do with a smoke power is probably pretty high, but uh currently he's kind of just a smoke guy that has a sea stone weapon.
Yeah,
Yeah, it'll be interesting what they end up doing with Smoker because he is an interesting character, and I think at the very end he'll be siding with Straw Hats.
Oh yeah. Yep, for
Yeah,
sure. Like he mentions they this when they're talking about Alabasta, they mention like he mentions like straight up like yeah, well, it may have been pirates who saved the day, but they were the like, or it may not have been the Marines that saved the day, but like at the end of the day, it was Luffy that made the right decisions and made the right moral choices, and he may be a pirate, but like he did the right thing. So I like seeing these conflicted Marine characters, especially one like Fujitora that's just like straight up willing to disobey his superiors to fulfill his own personal principles. Yeah, I'm excited, especially if we get to see more Fujitora because his powers are fucking cool.
and it's very poetic, I guess. Having the blind character be the Marine that can see justice
Yes.
hmm
the most.
Yep. It's like the classic statue of the what is her name? Not the Statue of Liberty, but like the classic Liberty statue with the lady with the scales in one hand, and I think she's got a torch in the other hand, but she's got a blindfold on. Um,
yeah.
all about the justice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yep, he was cool. And then we get to see He's got like a subordinate that was he didn't get too much screen time, but we do get to see more of the Buddha and the lady that he's hanging out with, and they kind of make an appearance towards the end of the arc. And this is the
Hmm.
first that we've seen of them since the war, I think, or at least the Buddha guy. I can't remember his name right now, but
Yeah, we actually saw
Sengoku.
yeah,
Suru in
Sengoku.
like the flashback, um, because she was kind of like always tailing Doflamingo.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, this is the first time that we've seen Sengoku
Yeah.
since the war.
So he's like retired, but he's still part of the Marines, or what's his deal?
I think his official title is like Inspector General or something, but the way that like Suru talks to him, she's basically like, okay, so basically you have like no responsibilities at all, and like you
Yeah.
just sort of get to do whatever you want. Um, so yeah, he doesn't like. I don't think that he's part of the chain of command. Um, he's just sort of around and like is still a Marine guy. Like he still has like the authority of the Marines, I guess, but like he can't. I don't think he directly commands.
Yeah.
We see Sengoku in the Law flashback. He pretty much raised uh, Corazon.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
did. He did indeed. That was
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, that was towards the end. That was like a separate flashback from the law flashback. That was like I think that was after that was pretty towards the end, but yeah, that was cool to see. I feel like that could have been I don't know. I was gonna say it could have been interesting during the law flashback, but I don't know if it would have
Well,
fit
we see
because
him report. We see Corazon like report to Sengoku
yeah, but
during the Law flashback.
we don't see
We don't
like
see him
the
like raise Corazon or
yeah.
anything, or like
And
find
I don't know if that would
Corazon.
have fit in the law flashback because that would have taken away from law as opposed to
And it also would have made it longer.
yeah. um,
I
something that
suppose.
something that I we didn't mention earlier about that flashback that I really liked is Law being the Heart Pirates and uh like him being like having Corazon on his shirt or his jacket and like
Mhm.
that's where he gets because Corazon's name literally means heart and that's why he's the Heart Pirates. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the all the literary aspects of that going on.
Yeah.
Like you had Diamante with the diamond, and
Yep.
everyone.
Rocinante with Don Quixote.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
cool how like the just like I like how the entire pirate crew it is like set up like it's like a deck of cards basically like they're all different suits.
Yep.
Um,
Hmm.
I like it when the pirate crews have like themes like that. Um, and it's yeah. I mean, I actually like really love. I think that Doflamingo's crew is probably the best villain crew that we've seen up until this point.
Yeah, it's
Or
definitely up
big
So
there.
time.
so many memorable guys.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, you mentioned it being like Baroque works, and I think Baroque works up to this point is probably my favorite, but Doflamingo is definitely giving them a run for their money.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I think that just like what I like about uh Doflamingo's crew is like how this is probably like my favorite aspect of Doflamingo is like how he sees everyone as like family. Like it's called like the Don Quixote family, and like he's basically like he has no family, so that the only ones that he actually cares about as his family are like the people that are like choosing to be with him. Um,
Yep.
because the ones that his real family is dead, mostly by his own hand, but basically because they didn't agree with him. Um, and so I like that, like he cares about the crew like his
And,
family.
and they do act like a family too.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, they like raise him. Like when he like meets up with, um, especially Treble, because Treble's like the oldest, I think. He
Hmm.
kind of
Hmm.
like acts as like a father figure to him in like a little bit of a flashback that we get um, after the whole Don Quixote thing,
Hmm.
like when he was crucified and shit. So maybe we should talk about Don Quixote as like a villain, Doflamingo.
Oh yeah, we should
Um,
definitely talk about him.
yeah. So because we haven't really talked about him so far,
Yeah.
but yeah, I would say like up until uh Dressrosa, uh Doflamingo was definitely like characterized as like a like going into the arc, we basically were set up to expect like he's always been in the background, like he's been introduced since like Jaya, kind of cool, but like is like one of like the kind of like end game villains that we meet very early. One Piece does that really well. Um and like we're kind of we see him like use his manipulating powers, or he like takes control of a dude and like makes them fight and stuff. He does that a couple times,
Hmm.
and he's kind of like presented even more so. Like we got more. I think the most information that we got about him was in the was in Punk Hazard, where we kind of learned that he's like this underground broker for like a lot of like the power players in the new world. So he's kind of like presented as this kind of like scheming mastermind type character, which I think is like super cool and an interesting an interesting direction for a One Piece villain. But I would say that like in this arc, I think that Doflamingo had like a lot of wasted potential. I think there was a lot of like really good potential for Doflamingo going into this arc, and I think that there's like a couple things that like really made me like not like him as much as a villain. And that's like another reason why I would put like Alabasta above this arc, because I think that Crocodile as a villain is better than Doflamingo as a villain. Um, One of the things that like I really like left me with a sour taste in my mouth for like his entire thing was like in the flashback. I thought it was really cool how we see like Doflamingo kind of like his whole story where like his dad basically like is a Tenryubito, so he's like a Tenryubito too. But his dad like out of like Tenryubito guilt basically, like he basically like wants to stop being a Tenryubito and like live among the common folk. Um, and basically everyone hates them because they're Tenryubito, and he gets literally crucified, um, which is like, damn, like he was presented as like kind of an asshole before that, like he's like, oh, like when are we gonna buy our slaves, um, but like, I mean, I feel sympathy for a character when they literally are being crucified for like basically no fault of their own,
Yep.
um, but like what I don't like is that later in like the Law flashback when Corazon, his like own brother, like literally says like, oh yeah, well, yeah, bad stuff might have happened to Doflamingo, but Doflamingo has literally been evil since birth. So like it doesn't actually matter. He's like completely evil, and you don't need to feel bad about like betraying him and anything like that. The fact that it just like it seems like he was just trying to like take away all of like the kind of like nuance and like um like gray area in terms of like morality uh, that Oda had like put into the story. Now he's just saying like, oh, don't worry about it. Like he's actually just evil, and he's always been evil. So it wouldn't that stuff didn't matter that he was like crucified and stuff. So I don't like that. Like it seems like Oda's just trying to like suck out all of the nuance. Um, so that definitely left me with a bad taste in my mouth. And then
I
also, I just like don't like how the fight plays out with Doflamingo. Like he basically is the most powerful, like physically, villain that we've seen up until this point. Like he literally like can tank all of Luffy's hits. He can like control an entire country of people at the same time. Whereas like up until this point, we've only seen him control one person at a time. And he can also do the fucking birdcage with like this whole thing, like this like entire like countrywide like application of his devil fruit, where he's just like literally going to like kill everyone in the entire country. So he's like doing so many things at once, and it's like it really like it makes it hard for me to take it seriously, just because it's like he's like so much stronger than like anyone else that we've seen up until this point. And it's like, why didn't he like show any of this power previously? Like if he was so powerful, like just like purely in terms of like his raw abilities, like why does he need to be like a backroom dealer, like
Yeah.
why does he need to be like a mastermind type character if he's just like such a powerhouse? um so yeah, that kind of bothered me. And then also like if his whole thing is like controlling people, like why didn't he just like control Luffy and Law earlier on in the fight? Like he took a lot of like serious hits that like probably should have killed him. Like when Law used his gamma knife, where it like literally like tears your body apart from the inside. Um, like why would he even put himself at risk like that? Like why wouldn't he just control them earlier and the fight? Because that's like the whole thing, is that like if he can control you, the fight's basically over. Um, so like I don't know, it's just sort of like a big. It just made it hard for me to take the fight seriously, at least like the Doflamingo side of the fight, just
Yeah.
because I don't know, there was like a lot of stuff that really strained my belief.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing about Doflamingo that you hit on for me as well was the fact that he was doing so much at once. Like you said, the bird cage, which is like a crazy, crazy strong ability. You would think that would take most of your concentration, but then he's also
Yeah.
fighting Luffy and he's also controlling like soldiers on the ground and stuff like that. And like that's
Mm-hmm.
like so much stuff that one person is doing all at once. And if you think about it as like a power, like he's supposed to be like using these strings, so you would think like he would have to be like actually like as it stands right now, like how is he like controlling those strings? So, like you think of like a puppeteer, like he's got like a string attached to each finger, and he's got like each finger does a different
Mm-hmm.
thing. But like other than that, like Doflamingo, like we don't see him like gesturing towards the birdcage at all. Like he doesn't have to
Yeah.
gesture to control people. He just does it. Like sometimes you see him do gestures and stuff, but usually that's just with moves. It just seemed kind of like I had to suspend my disbelief a bit more than I was comfortable, I guess, with his powers. Just because
Yeah.
it just seemed like he was doing so much at once. And like while I did really like the powers, like because you guys had mentioned like you were probing me to like what do you think with his power is like kind of piecing together what these weird things that we'd seen him do, like control people, but also he can
Mm-hmm.
slice people's faces off, and like it does connect really well with like strings. Like if you have
Yeah. Yeah.
like
I
a
agree.
bunch of razor sharp, really really tiny strings attached to your fingers, you're gonna be able to slice somebody pretty fucking well. And like that was
Yeah.
cool to see like that reveal, like him having the string fruit, but like him doing that. Also another thing that he does, like after Law does the gamma knife, he has like inside of his body, he's able to like reconstruct his organs with strings, and it's like
Yeah.
this is like the craziest shit. He's doing all this shit at
And they
once.
don't even mention like, oh, like the birdcage stopped a little because he was doing that, or like, oh, those people like regained control of their bodies because he was doing that.
Yeah,
It was just like, no, that stuff was still happening while he was using what like seems to be a pretty crazy application of your devil fruit.
yeah.
um so
Yeah, and then seeing yeah, and then in the fight, like seeing like Law and Luffy get so exhausted using their own powers, and just him like not
mhm.
getting exhausted by his own means, just getting exhausted because he's fighting, like him
Yeah.
getting physically beaten up. Other than that, like it seemed like he could have controlled all those strings forever if he wanted to. It just like I said, I had to suspend my disbelief a bit more than I was comfortable for like a fight, and I don't think the
Hmm.
fight lived. I think the fight was. I liked the fight, but like it could have been better for sure.
Yeah, I definitely
Here's why I'm
liked.
writing this
uh,
off though.
okay.
I'm writing this off because Doflamingo was our introduction to Devil Fruit Awakenings. He
Yeah.
Mm,
he's literally the master of his Devil Fruit. He
Okay.
can literally turn the environment into strings. Like
I
he's
forgot
he's
about
just
that. Yeah.
the master of his Devil Fruit, and that's why I'm writing it off.
I forgot about
okay.
that whole awakening thing. I didn't really like catch it when it happened. I mean, I did catch it when it happened, but I didn't really like understand the significance of it until like he did start turning things into strings, and I was like, that's kind of
Yep.
crazy because like if Luffy ever got that, imagine him being able to turn his environment into strings. So I guess that does
Or
kind of like
rubber.
play into like him not being able, not
Yeah.
physically controlling the strings. Um, yeah, that's
that's
interesting.
that's fair, and I guess it could work as like a reason for like how he was technically able to do it. um but what I don't like is that like if he was that much of a like if he was in that much like of a master of his devil fruit, then like as I said earlier, like why does he need to be doing all of these like backroom dealings? Why does he need to be like a manipulator type character? Because like, just in general, whenever you have like one of those like types of like mastermind characters, like what makes them the reason that they're masterminds is because they're like they don't have
Wrong.
like the means to like have like physical power, and they need to
Yeah.
rely on other means. And I think that like that's kind of what I was set up to believe about Doflamingo, was that he was like, you know, and not necessarily that like he can just tank a bunch of hits, but like he's still intimidating just based off of what we know up until this point, right? Like literally just being able to control someone is just like it's just a terrifying ability. Like that basically means that he can just automatically win. If we're just going off of what we know up until this point, up until the beginning of the arc, we've seen him control one person at a time, right? So if he can only do that, if he can only control one person at a time, that means he just automatically wins any one-on-one fight because he just controls you, and then he just like makes you kill yourself. Um, so I mean, I think that he already had an intimidating power. I don't think that like like he didn't need to like be made even more powerful. Like they literally like Oda basically changed the nature of devil fruits in this fight by like revealing what an awakened devil fruit can do, like what it like can do on like by turning your environment into your devil fruit or whatever.
Yeah.
So like I don't know. I just think that like he was already intimidating enough, and I didn't think that he needed to add more. Adding more just sort of like took away from my ability to believe what was happening.
Yeah. I think it
It's a
might have
fair
been.
point.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna play the counter argument here and say the reason he was so sly and working the underground was because at the same time, even though he seemed so strong, I think he didn't want to get the world government's attention because all of a sudden you got three admirals, you got the top guys who can stop you. You know, he seems strong, but there are stronger people in the One Piece world who can stop him, and that's why he wanted to be uh, in the shadows.
Yeah, and I think Oda also was writing him like because he's literally a puppeteer, and I think he wanted to write him as that kind of character, like he is a puppeteer in the shadows kind of thing, where he's
And as far as why wasn't he fixing his organs, why even bother fight? I'm gonna argue that it's because his arrogance. That's just his character.
yeah, he is a very arrogant character, and that's
Yeah.
that's shown from like even him as a young age, like that's I guess it kind of goes back to Kyle saying like they kind of didn't have any nuance to his character, like he was an arrogant evil guy
Hmm.
with a strong familial side to him, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't honestly I kind of like that aspect of him, and like talking about Crocodile as a comparison, I don't really remember Crocodile having too much of a gray area to him until we see him
That
at
yeah, that's fair.
until we see him at um
All
Impel
down.
Down.
Like an impel down. Yeah,
Yeah, and even that's just like him. It's not like him like having a good side to him. It's just him working with Luffy so he can achieve his goal of killing Whitebeard or
yeah,
whatever. So
yeah.
it's not unprecedented for these big characters to have no gray area and they're still good villains. Um, uh,
That's fair. Yeah. I
and I
mean, what
liked
I
I
would
liked
say though,
because I really liked I don't know I liked him as a Tenru Bito. Like I think that like it made sense for me and like I like that backstory for him and like him being a very evil person was interesting and it kind of felt like a very like kind of a classic villain like comic book villain but not in a bad way. It didn't feel campy.
yeah, yeah. I think that my like, I agree that I don't think that Crocodile has like an insane level of like nuance or like moral gray areas or anything like that. Like he is kind of like a just he's like generically like power hungry villain. But I would say that like with Crocodile, um, I think that there's one thing that like well there's a couple things that like I like about Crocodile, but one of them is like that like him being an Alabasta is like literally a perfect fit for his devil fruit. Like that's why he specifically wanted to take over Alabasta. And so like that's just like inherently like kind of like I don't know, I just sort of like that he's like a schemer and he's like, okay, this is gonna be the easiest island for me to take over because of my devil fruit. And like he used his devil fruit to do it. And so I like that he's kind of like a natural fit for like the setting where the arc takes place. And I don't think that Doflamingo has that on the same level as Crocodile. And then another thing, which I think is like still probably, well, yeah, I think that my problem um, with Doflamingo having like no gray area is that like we kind of like get a flashback that like would seem to imply that there should be, like the point could have been like, look, just being born a Tenryu Bito, like with like this level of like power over other people will just inherently make you like a bad person. But it seems like it's like Rocinante implies that like no, like that was just like he was just a bad person from the beginning. So I think
And
that
his
what I don't
dad.
like about it,
And his dad, yeah.
what?
He hated his dad as a kid because his dad showed mercy.
Yeah, his dad was born as a Tenryubito as well and he showed mercy. So
Right.
Well, yeah,
obviously
I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I guess the point would have a little bit more nuance than that, but it could just be like, look, like being born with this level of power, like maybe it won't like inherently make you a bad person, but like it's going to like set you down that path, or like
Yeah.
it helps a lot. And
yeah.
like I think that like with Rocinante implying that it's like he was just born evil to begin with, it's like we're almost like presented with like the foundation for what could be a more interesting villain, and then it's like kind of just taken away, like the rug is just yanked out from under us, and like that just really bothered me. And then also it's like it kind of just makes me like Rocinante less, because it's like, dude, like how could you ever just like, no matter what your like family did, like how could you just be like, no, they're just like pure evil? Like he was literally there, he was crucified too. Like how could you not have like some level of understanding as like, yeah, dude, like fucked up things happen to us, and like, you know, I don't condone his actions, but I can at least understand like why he hates the world. The fact that he's just like, okay, like he's evil, we need to like kill him and stuff. I don't know, it kind of makes me like Rocinante less, but
Yeah.
I don't know. That's
I
not a
can I can
huge.
see that for sure. Like he went through
Yeah,
the
it
same
kind of makes
thing,
him
so
like a traitor.
Rocinante should have some kind of sympathy for that. But
Yeah, the fact that he has like the least amount of sympathy out of everyone is kind of like, I don't know, it's weird.
yeah.
Yeah. But
Um.
then also like one more thing, one closing thing about Doflamingo, um, unless you guys want to say anything else, is like that I think that like one of the things that I guess I can compare to Crocodile, but just like in general, one of like the biggest problems that I have, probably like probably like the worst. This is probably the worst moment of the arc. Probably the worst moment in One Piece is like when like, okay, so we've always seen Doflamingo control people using the strings. We even see him control like Diamond Joe's, who like literally is like super fucking strong. He like picks up like that entire like ice block in the war, and he cannot do anything when he's being controlled by Doflamingo. Like Doflamingo basically, it's implied that he can just control anyone like without like there's just nothing that they can do about it. But what and so it's like that question has been set up before the arc. Like, okay, it's inevitable that Luffy will fight this guy. How is he going to get around that? Like in an interesting way. In like the same way that like the question for fighting Crocodile was like, how is he going to even land a hit on him? Because it, you know, and then we get it answered in a satisfying way with he like makes his he gets himself wet, and then that's what enables him to damage him. But with the strings
He just
and with
breaks
being
it.
controlled, he just breaks it. Like there's just no explanation. Like it didn't need to be that deep. I just would have preferred something as to like why Luffy was able to do it when literally no one else in like the history of anyone who tried to oppose Doflamingo was able to do so. Like there was
The
just
will of
nothing.
D.
The will of D.
Yeah, but like
That's like a. That's like a.
that's dumb.
I'm just joking. I I can't answer that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
It
just
would have
made
been
me
cool if
really
that was
like
him. Like if he went Gear 4 to break it, but Gear 4 was that before or after he went Gear 4? I think that
it
was.
was
I think that was
after, I think.
after. But like I
But
feel
like
like that being the
I think that
catalyst.
might have been what happened was like, well, no, I
No,
think he,
I
I don't
think
know.
that it definitely was not the catalyst for him to go Gear 4, but I think it should have been the catalyst for him to go Gear 4 because
Yeah.
if he gets controlled and then we see Luffy go Gear 4 to break it, like that would have been cool,
Hmm.
but we didn't see
But
uh,
it.
like if there was like an explanation as to like why Gear 4 enabled him to break it, like just something. Like it just
yeah,
it
that
could
would
be
have been
anything.
nice. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it would have been so much better than just like, okay, now it's like literally just like because Luffy is just, I don't know, better than anyone who he's tried it on. It just seems like it's like that much more of like just, you know, he's the main character. That's why. And I don't like that as
I
an
think
explanation.
I think you joke and say the will of D, but like that might be a legitimate explanation that they go into because like they do make a point of them saying like the people that hold the name D are the people that will bring the end of the gods or whatever, and like
Yeah.
figuratively speaking, Doflamingo is a Tenryubito who are the gods, quote unquote. So
Yeah.
Hmm.
like he is a figurative direct counter to Tenryubito and to Doflamingo as a member of this clan of D or whatever. And while it may not be the best explanation, and it may not be the actual explanation, like that might be some sort of explanation if you're looking for one. Other than that, I can't really say anything.
Yeah.
As
I mean,
far
I
as
think that
having to
go
come
on.
up with a new technique like what we had in the crocodile fight, I think Gear 4 came out as a response to Luffy needing to fight someone who can fly all around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like that's you know, I want to talk about Gear Fourth as well because I love Gear Fourth, but
Yeah.
but like yeah, I just it's just like I would like something, just like some sort of explanation. And even if it is like the will of D, I would say that that's not a good explanation because that basically means that like it was because of fate. It was just
Yeah.
because like in this matchup he was just always going to win, and it wasn't because of anything that he earned. It was just because of literally like his name that enabled him to win. I would say that's like that's just an unsatisfying explanation.
No,
It might be better than nothing, but if that is the actual explanation, then I think that that's a bad one.
yeah,
So
I don't think it's a good one, but if you're looking for one, that might be the best one you'll find.
yeah, yeah,
So
that's
this is
fair.
when I hit Will with the, it's a story.
Yeah, it's a movie, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just like I said, I have high expectations for One Piece because it has delivered on them in the past. So
I
whenever it
agree with
doesn't, I'm
you.
gonna point
It
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 out.
would have been very nice to have an explanation.
Yeah, but let's talk about Gear Fourth, which is something that I actually love about this arc. So
Gear 4 was really
I
cool.
think it's great. Like I love like how stupid it looks, like because he just like literally turns into a ball, and everyone's like, "Holy shit, dude! Doflamingo is getting beaten by a bouncing rubber ball. What the heck?" And I thought that was cool, and I also like this is like I had said before, I had kind of been like harping on how I don't like hockey and how it's like a retcon and like how it's awful. But like this is like an actually cool application of hockey, I think, because I really love how like the the blackening of the skin just sort of like makes him like have like these sort of like tattoo like things, like like the designs where like his arms like turn black, like it just looks like he has like these like cool like tribal tattoos, I think it looked like the design of Gear 4 is
And
really cool.
actually, I don't know if you've noticed, but the designs of the tattoos are in the same shape as his Gomu Gomu no fruit.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Yeah,
sick.
yeah.
It
From
reminded
like
me
literally chapter
of
1.
it reminded me of Thriller Bark Luffy when he gets all the souls in him. I can't remember
Yeah, yeah,
what
yeah.
they
Because
called
he,
that
he
form, but that's what it reminded me of, and it like the
Nightmare
design
Luffy.
of it
Yeah,
looked very similar to that, which I
yeah.
really liked. I like him having the spikier hair. It looked really
Uh-huh.
cool and like you said, it's really silly, but also looks cool at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's great about it. It's like a classic, like this is exactly what I would want out of a One Piece power up, where it's like goofy and also cool. Um, so yeah, I think it's great.
I'm excited to see your Gear 5.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of
Or
other.
6 or 7. Like, how far does it go?
How far does it go? Um,
Also, it was cool that he's got this technique going on from Bellamy, who comes back this arc.
oh, we should talk about Bellamy too. Yeah, he comes back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bellamy is cool to see back. I wasn't a huge fan of his like. Well, I made a pact, not, it wasn't even a pact. It was like, well, I said I would follow Doflamingo, and I'll do that till I die. And like Doflamingo, and he like gets his ass beat, and then like Doflamingo like controls him, and he doesn't want to fight Luffy, but then Doflamingo stops controlling him, and he fights Luffy anyway. And he's like, I got to do this, or I look like an idiot. And I was like, all right, like, is that really necessary to like just fucking take your licks and leave? Like, they don't need to keep fighting Luffy just because you're devoted to, or you don't want to look like a stupid idiot for declaring yourself to follow somebody and then stopping following them. Like you're allowed to just go back and say I was wrong, which I guess he kind
Yeah.
of does towards the end. But like I don't know, that would seem like a quick way for Oda to get Luffy out of the picture for a couple chapters for him
Yeah.
to be
It's
fighting.
definitely like shonen logic as far as like motivation.
Yeah, it would
Like it
be
doesn't
not
really make
not
a
be
lot of
something.
sense,
Yeah.
but it just sort of like it is kind of cool, just like, oh, he's like, he's stubborn, I guess, and he's like, you know, he's he's dedicated, I guess, to his superiors. And I mean, he had been like wanting to be, I mean, he's been in like Doflamingo's, like this is like one of the first times that we saw Doflamingo was like when he was pissed at Bellamy for losing to Luffy in the first place. So it is kind of like it makes sense that like we get Bellamy back um in the Doflamingo arc.
Yeah.
Uh and so I was happy to see.
Yeah.
And then also like there is a nice callback to the punch where he like does another punch and
Yes.
it's like basically like the same. And it's cool.
And it's always nice to see characters that we saw a long time ago that are powering up with. They may not be on the same power level as Luffy, but they're powering up in their own way. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Bellamy had been doing that, which is cool to see.
It's
yeah.
always nice to see characters that we've met before come back in the story. It just kind of builds the, these guys are doing their own thing while we're watching the Straw Hats.
Yeah, it fleshes out the world for sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Bellamy was cool. We get to see. Wasn't there somebody else that came back? Oh, maybe I'm thinking somebody else. Never mind.
Sabo.
No, not Sabo. I'm trying to think of other people in the
uh,
crew or in the arena that were of notice that we have not mentioned yet. I was not a fan of uh, the main guy that was with Flamingo for most of it, the guy with the snot. I feel like he
Treble.
was what was his name?
Yeah. Treble.
Treble.
Treble. I don't know. I feel like he was kind of whatever.
I did like the part where Law cuts him, and then he's like just a small dude.
Yeah, no, I actually really like the part where Luffy like tries to punch him. He's like, "Why can't I do this? I have hockey. I should be able to kill a Logia guy." He goes, "But am I a Logia user?"
Yeah.
You don't know that, do you? And he was not. He just had a very skinny body.
The
Yeah.
Dacian.
Yeah, there was a
La,
really
the
there was a really funny laugh that somebody had in this. I think it was
What?
Pika. Didn't Pika have like a really weird laugh? He was like, it was
Oh
like
yeah. Well,
Pika Pika Pika, haha, or something like
yeah, yeah.
that.
I think he was like saying his name. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
I liked the gag where Pika had like this super high pitched voice and they're all laughing at him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I liked that gag.
that was something I kind of want to go back and see in the anime just to see what they do with that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I watched that scene again when I was reading it. And it was good.
Um, I guess we could talk
Oh,
about like
I liked a lot. I
the
was gonna say another member of the crew, another member of like Doflamingo's crew that I liked. I liked Lao G.
Lao Ji with
I thought he was
his
pretty
old
funny.
man moves.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how like at one point he was like dying, and then he like came back.
Yeah, that was
Like his
hilarious.
spirit was leaving his body. They were like, "Oh, is it his aura?" Like, no, he's just dying.
It was like straight like
That was
I think
good.
it was with the shoutcaster just straight up announcing like, "Oh my God! It seems in the middle of this fight something unprecedented has happened. He's died of natural causes in the middle of the fight."
Yeah.
Like, oh no, it's just his aura leaving his body, and then he comes back and he's like jacked. But that was really
Yeah.
stupid, really
Yeah,
silly.
that was pretty epic. And then I
Yeah,
also like the lady who like turns everything into like Picasso paintings.
she was really
Yeah.
stupid.
Yeah.
She
Such a
was
cool like
hilarious,
power
dude.
though.
Though every single time, who the hell are you calling Boa Hancock?
Yeah.
Who the hell are you calling the most beautiful woman in the world?
Yeah.
It's just like those really stupid
Also just like
moments.
one of the weirdest devil fruits that we've seen so far.
Yeah,
Um,
Yes.
like she just changes the art style of the manga, and like
in a cool way though.
yeah, yeah, in an awesome way. And I love how like Brooke is like he kind of like pretends to like be on her side because he's like, oh, like I'm an artist too, like I make music and stuff. Um, everyone's like what the hell, Brooke? Like, are you betraying us right now? Like, what's happening? And then he does a cool cut, like he always does.
Yes.
So yeah,
Um,
I was into her.
and yeah, at the end of the chapter, we get to see a very brief glimpse into what the other half of the crew has been up to. They're getting chased around in a jungle, it seems.
Yes, yes, it
Uh,
is jungle.
and we also get to see the very, very teasy image of well, they get their wanted posters at the very end. Luffy's up to 500 million. I think Zoro's up to like 300 and something million. But we get to see the very teasy image that they specifically point out that, uh, Sanji gets his new poster that's not a drawing anymore. It's like an actual
Yeah,
picture. But it says he is the only one
only
that does not
alive.
say dead or alive. It is the only one that says alive only. So
Yeah,
something's going on with Sanji.
huh. Wonder what
What
that
could
could
it
be.
be? Could it be the next arc or perhaps the arc after that that explains what's going on there?
Potentially.
Only time will tell.
Only time will
Um,
tell.
that seems like with where they're going. We also get to see Kaido. Is that his name? Kaido.
Oh yeah, dude. Oh my God, yeah.
Kaido's
When
introduction
Kaido, this is
is super
literally like
cool.
Yeah, literally like one of the best character introductions in One Piece, where he just like literally kills himself, or he tries to kill himself, and then he's just like, "Damn, it didn't work." Like, he's just like so tough. He's the world's strongest creature, or the world's strongest beast. I
Yeah,
forget what they
up
call
until
him.
this point, I
But
was not dreading Kaido whatsoever because it seemed like he was just kind of like, for me at least, he seemed like a kind of like I kind of figured he could be the weakest of the Yonko just because like it seemed like he kind of artificially got his power by getting all those artificial devil fruits and being
hmm
like the leader of these beastmen. But now I'm like, oh shit, this guy is fucking scary. They're like, he tried to commit suicide by guillotine and the blade broke. He tried to shoot himself,
yeah,
but the bullet bounced off, and it's just like all this shit that like he's tried to kill himself so many times and it's never worked, and like,
He
yeah,
jumped off of Skypiea.
yeah,
yeah.
and like
Well, yeah,
if like there's a common saying like if you got a one-on-one always put your money on Kaido, and it's like
yeah,
Jesus Christ, Luffy, you want to pick a fight with this dude? Jesus Christ,
yeah,
Luffy, you got your work cut out for you. So I am kind of dreading Kaido now.
yeah. And like, I love how he just like where he jumps off, like where he lands, is like literally in the meeting between like the other alliance that we know of,
Yeah,
um, between Jack and or I mean Kid and not Jack,
the double elbow
Kid
guy
and
and
uh yeah name Hawkins and Apu. Yeah.
yep, yep. I liked the very brief panel of Killer eating spaghetti through his
Oh
mask.
yeah,
That was
yeah,
so
that was awesome.
stupid. Everyone else is eating pizza and he's just eating. He's just slurping spaghetti through his mask. He's got like tomato sauce all over his mask.
Yeah,
Um,
very epic.
I don't know. I'm always a fan of seeing like the new bounties. I'm also always a fan of seeing uh like reactions to those new bounties from across the world. So getting to see like the other alliances like oh shit, Luffy's up to 500 million, that type of thing, or like they took
hmm
down Don Quixote. Jesus, that's pretty good, pretty good. Um,
Yeah,
Always a fan of that.
yeah.
But yeah, that kind of covers most of it. I'm trying to think of other small moments. A lot of really good just single panels that I think I posted in our Discord chat, but I loved like the whole antics with Kinemon and like Luffy and I think it was it Usopp that was in the last animal costume, the fish costumes. That was
Oh,
just
it was. I think it was. I think that might have been when
was it Sanji?
Sanji was still around, or maybe no. I think it was Zoro, Kinemon, and Luffy.
Yeah, I don't know. Those whole antics were funny. I liked Sanji's very brief introduction with Violet or Viola. That was
hmm
kind of silly
Yeah,
but kind of stupid in a good
yeah.
way.
Well, and also like basically kind of reveals that Sanji has this innate power that he could just like see the hearts of women, and he like knows if they're good or not
Yeah,
because he like basically called that she was like not really working for Doflamingo, um, and he was right, and she was like, oh man, you like saw right into my heart. So I mean, Sanji, he's got his woman powers, and now they're
yeah.
kind of canon.
He finally had success with a woman in some capacity,
Yeah,
besides the mermaids, I guess.
yeah, yeah. The mermaids were, yeah, they were kind of into it, I guess.
Um, but he was kind of unconscious for most of the mermaid things, so he wasn't able to exploit it.
Yeah.
um, Other small moments.
Straw hats for me in this arc were Frankie and Usopp as far as getting actual stuff done.
Yeah.
Like they had very clear objectives.
Yeah,
Frankie blew up the
yeah,
factory.
Frankie might have
Usopp
been.
led the charge on taking care of the soldiers,
Yeah, I think.
or I mean, taking care of the toys.
Yeah,
hmm
Frankie was very driven. This I think Frankie was probably the standout for the Straw Hats for me. Just A, I
Oh
just
yeah,
loved his fight so much, and B, like the entire time it's always like Frankie's on his way to destroy the factory. Frankie's about to destroy that factory. Frankie just fucked up the factory. Like it was like
Yeah.
always him
yeah.
like doing what he
Also,
needs to
yeah.
do. He's fighting with Senior Pink, and it's just yeah. Frankie was definitely a standout, and like He didn't like do anything super crazy, but it was just good
Yeah.
Frankie energy the entire way.
He was
Yeah,
also like kind of like the one who was like, Luffy, we should like stay here and like actually help these people. Like when he like learned the plight of like the
true.
fairies.
Yep.
So I mean he was definitely like important in terms of like deciding. And I mean Luffy was like, yeah, like I mean we should because he was sympathetic to like Rebecca and stuff. So yeah, I mean I was definitely a fan of like Frankie doing things because I mean, yeah, in like the last couple arcs, haven't really been super Frankie centric.
Yeah,
Um, so this was like it
Frankie
was good
arc.
that he
good
got
Frankie.
more time to shine. Also, I liked his I liked both of his hairdos in this arc. I liked
The
his
the pigtail
braids.
hairdo is kind of growing on me. I kind of like pigtail
Yeah.
Frankie.
And then the when he was fighting Senor Pink when he goes into cannon hair mode, he puts it
Yes,
in attack mode.
I do
That
like
was epic.
I do like the cannon hair quite a lot.
Yeah.
Um, I also liked him when he's learning about the plight of the toys with the toy soldier version of what's it whatever his face is. I liked
Kairos.
him being in toy mode where he's just like kind of like got treads or whatever.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was kind of silly. He's
Yeah,
like,
that
oh
was
look at that
cool.
toy.
And everyone, yeah, everyone thought he was a toy. That was
Yeah.
cool.
Oh, another good moment was not Frankie, but I loved Bartolomeo's ship. The what was it? The
Yeah.
going
The going
Luffy,
Luffy senpai.
going Luffy senpai, or going oh, it's going Mr. Luffy, I think. I love that. It's got like a big Luffy figurehead, and everyone's like a
Yeah.
huge Luffy
And
symbol. He's like,
everyone's like, dude, what are you doing? You need to stop.
he's like, wait, we have new bounty posters, and Bartolomeo's like, oh yeah, I've got them framed in my room for you to see if you want to if you want to look at them really quick. God, he's like
Yeah.
Bartolomeo is
Bartolomeo
another
was a big highlight.
big highlight for sure.
He's literally a straw hat fanboy.
Yeah, and that was like I said it earlier, but that was such a great twist. I was not seeing coming
Yeah.
because like they
Yeah.
play him as such a savage character to begin with, and then he just turns
Yeah.
into such a puppy dog for Luffy.
Yeah.
Also, the frames of him, just him simping over the rest of the crew is great as well. Like I sent the frame earlier, but him saying like, "Oh, to get a wink from Robin, any man would
Yeah.
give his life," or like him being like Usopp King or what or God Usopp. I guess that was kind of a different catalyst for that, but he was
Yeah.
still simping over Usopp as well. It was very great, and honestly he might be the biggest one that I'm excited to see in the future. Um, his barrier ability seems cool. It didn't seem like the most flexible ability, but it did seem pretty cool. Um,
Yeah.
one thing that I
I mean,
like,
pretty strong because I think that he basically said that like it literally can't be broken
yeah,
once he puts it out. He can only put out so many, and
you can
like
only
if he
put out
puts out
one.
too many, yeah, yeah, he can only put out one. And I think that like he runs out of it. Like if he can like if he runs out of stamina, then he like is done. Like he can't put out anymore.
Yeah.
But like I think that when it's out, it can basically tank any attack.
hmm
So that's definitely pretty strong.
I liked there was a good SBS moment where they were like asking about he's like how many times can he use it and how much square footage can he have and Oda
Yeah,
was like oh well he can only have it once but he can probably like he can use it to cover like 999 and like PPPP choo choo units and like but and that translates approximately to this many and then another made up unit which translates
yeah.
approximately to this many and then another made up unit. It was just like this complete bullshit by Oda like these random ass units that make no sense and it's like that's probably about the square footage that it could cover. And it's like, okay, Oda.
Trolling everyone.
Yeah, it was just joking around.
Yeah, when like I think it's like he basically like did that at like the very beginning of One Piece. There was like an SBS where someone asked like how long can Luffy stretch, and he just said like 42 Gomu Gomus is that's how long he can
Yeah.
stretch. And so he just sort of whenever anyone asks for like the limits of people's devil fruits, he always just gives it in no units. So
Yeah. I like this arc was the first arc in a while that I've actually been looking at the SBSs because I like switched sites because the other site that I was using like only went up to a certain chapter. But being able to see all the SBSs for this was pretty great. I guess like there's like a running thing where like people ask about new characters' birthdays and like at the end
yeah,
of this arc there was an SBS of like the entire calendar of birthdays of all the characters so far, which was
yeah,
cool. There was like
Had the sweet dreams.
yeah, the sweet. I sent you that one. Is that where you get that from? I don't know. You always tell me sweet
No, no,
dreams.
sweet dreams just came out of nowhere. I don't know.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, yeah, he tells the fans sweet dreams. And there was I think Kyle sent one earlier that was like, how do you draw women? And he shows like a very basic diagram of like a circle and then two diagonal lines.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
no,
that,
it's 3 circles and an X.
yeah, it was so stupid. And then, yeah, just so many great moments. Like every single time, it was like I think it feels like every other SBS, somebody's like probing a question like, why do you always draw women with big breasts? And he's just like, I love big breasts. I like big boobs. They're just great. And like somebody, it was one of the funniest moments was like somebody was like, um, what was the character with the horns name that was in the family?
Oh, Derringer, I think.
Derringer. Yeah, there was an SBS where it's like, oh, Derringer, finally, a flat-chested woman. Like, oh my God, what a great finally, Oda, you've made a flat-chested woman. There's got
Yeah.
some representation for flat-chested women out there. And it goes, oh no, Derringer's a man. Derringer's like a 16-year-old boy. And I was laughing my ass off because like, there's no chance that Oda puts a female character in One Piece that does not have big tits.
Yeah.
Oh God,
Yeah.
yeah. Seeing the SBSs was pretty fun.
I love that.
Um, well, if nobody else has any other smaller moments or bigger moments even, I think that'll do it for us.
I think we pretty much talked about everything.
Yeah, we
Just a
talked
little
about
bit. So
talked a pretty good amount. Coming up on hour and 40 minutes of Dressrosa.
quite a long arc.
So we'll
Yeah,
do that.
yeah, Dressrosa will
Yeah.
do that. Do you know what chapter we're going till next?
Yeah, the next one
I
is
guess 860
much
something.
well, yeah, so it actually like the next one is like a short arc. I don't want to combine it with the next one because if we combine it with the next one, it would be like as long as Dressrosa again.
Okay,
So the next one will just be a cool 23 chapters. We're just going to 820.
okay, sounds good to me.
Yeah.
All right, well, that'll do it for this episode. Next episode will be till 8:24 then,
Yep.
and we will see you then, 2 weeks ish.
Sounds good.
All right, bye bye.
Later.